All right, and we are recording. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So just really quickly, thank you everyone for showing up. We've had a great response. So we were pretty excited to see all of the registrations that came in. And anybody who feels the need to hop off, if you've got something that comes up, we are going to send a link so that you can go back and rewatch the video afterwards if you need to. And so I'm just really quickly going to introduce myself. My name is Sherry Lozier. I am one of the directors with Distinct Ability. And with us here today, I also have joining from our team, Marilyn Ellis. And Marilyn, if you want to take a quick second to say hi.
Yeah, hi, I'm Marilyn Ellis. I'm lead brain and hand specialist here in Canada and looking forward to setting more and more people up on this wonderful tool in the future.
Awesome, thank you. And I know Donna seems to be having some issues getting in and out, so I'm not gonna put her on the spot, but Donna Smith-Major, who's also one of our team members looking after some of the areas in the East Coast, is one of the team members that's joined us today. So for those of you who don't know who we are, our team are dedicated professionals supporting employment and education for those with disabilities, and we have a specific interest in the area of neurodiversity. And one of our areas of focus has been to introduce a human blended support with assistive technology that we learned about, and that's being relied upon by users all over the UK for work and education, like employees at pretty much every level of employment, and also students at colleges and universities across the UK. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and hopefully my screen will advance properly. Okay,
I'll be monitoring the chat. If anybody wants to jump in with any questions, I can try and answer those in real time in the chat.
Thank you. And that reminds me that I should come back and do a quick little housekeeping, a couple of items. If you have questions, please do feel free to drop those in the chat box as we're going along. And Marilyn's amazing at looking after those kinds of things. So she's going to jump in and try and answer those during the course of the presentation. We will pause towards the end for some questions. If you have any issues with tech, please feel free to email me. So the email address that you would have gotten your reminder email from, just let me know if you run into any issues. And we do have everybody muted through the presentation, just to keep the background noise down and make it easy for everybody to hear. If at some point, we start having connection issues, which is not that uncommon in our Zoom world, I will drop off my video just so that we can continue with the presentation uninterrupted, but hopefully that won't be an issue. And you're welcome to go ahead and turn your cameras off as well. I know some people, when they're just listening, don't necessarily want them on, but you're welcome to leave them on or off, whichever you prefer. And so we're going to go ahead and get into our introduction. So we're introducing you to Brain in Hand. So for those of you who don't know what that is, several years back, a team of clinicians developed a tool based on cognitive behavioral therapy strategies and principles. It was originally designed in that clinical environment to support adults on the autism spectrum. However, in the implementation process, they recognized that it provided a solution not focused on just one condition, but on supporting specific types of needs. What we call needs-led, not conditions-led, is how we refer to our solution. And with that realization a few years ago, they began to make it available in the broader market and outside of the clinical setting. And now they are up to 7,000 users in the UK who are on the system. And we're now able to offer it here in Canada. So when we say focused on the needs, the solution really helps not with the condition, but things like managing stress and anxiety, dealing with unexpected changes, planning and structuring, decision-making and change. And as you know, those can relate to any of these particular areas of a person's life. And they really exist in varying degrees, especially for people with neurodiversities and disabilities. So they can affect pretty much any area of a person's life. So what we want to do today is really a quick overview. This is a really complex system, but it's actually extremely simple to use. Getting set up sounds like it's complicated. Again, once it's established, it's really simple to use. So we want to do just a quick overview to give you a sense of what it looks like and open that door for more questions and to see whether or not there's an opportunity for you to utilize this in a number of different ways. So before we get started with the Brain in Hand solution, we have to ensure that every user is assessed based on suitability. And so we have a suitability document that's to be completed just to ensure that fit for them. And then there is a referral that's made to us, and that initiates the entire process. So once that piece has happened, we consider that to be our starting point. We start with that very first step, which is really about our notebook. And this is a proprietary document, was developed with CBT therapies in mind. And it really discusses the initial stages of exploring what kinds of goals and triggers a person might have for themselves. What kinds of issues are they having that is impacting their ability to have the independence that they're looking for? And so we're collecting that information in a very self-directed way with help from family or supporters. And so you can kind of see that person sitting down and having a look at the notebook, which of course these days is naturally is a digital one. And step number 2 is that once that stage is completed, then we move on to the next one, which is meeting with your specialist. So Marilyn is one of our specialists. Actually, Marilyn's our lead specialist. So someone would meet with Marilyn once they've put some effort into that notebook. And she is, and as will be each of the specialists, trained and certified to professionally support that experience. They're able to build on the goals that you need to identify in your notebook and to help you find strategies and tools that work specifically for you. So this is really about it being a very person-centered process. Once they have gone through that stage and the strategies are identified, it is time to start plugging that all into our digital technology. And this is our assistive technology piece that bridges the gap between the in-person supports and they give access to your executive brain function when your struggle it's always available. So even when someone isn't necessarily right there to support you, your Brain in Hand app is. And it helps to allow people to figure things out independently. There are 4 parts of this technology that really make it unique, but also is what makes it so very effective. And the bottom line is you will have preloaded solutions that can be hyperlinked by a website, email, SMS, and all of those solutions, as well as your own, just information, is already built into this. And we do that through the website. But we're going to start with just each of the individual sections. So first, we're going to talk about the daily planner. And the daily planner can be used to set reminders of regularly scheduled events to keep you on track and on routine. And that could be including your activities of daily living, your work schedules, or monitoring your mood. The unplanned events section is very similar, and it can be loaded with strategies and solutions for the things that you unexpectedly encounter or have no specific timing around. We may not know when it will happen that we meet new people, but meeting new people might be a source of anxiety or stress for us. These are things that would trigger a challenge for decision-making or problem-solving or managing in a situation. And you'll have worked with your specialist in advance to come up with those strategies. And those, again, can include hyperlinks right in the app so that you're able to add things like, for example, your bus stop website, or perhaps it is an SMS that goes to a particular person. The third part is the traffic light, and this is literally a traffic light. It's simple. It's how you're going to track how you're feeling or doing at a particular moment in time. It's a snapshot for patterns and strategies or solutions that work, and also for understanding when they don't work. And we will talk a little bit about that more in just a minute, but I just want to talk about the last section, which is the dashboard. And this is the browser-based access point where you can look back at those successes and opportunities, as well as the place to add strategies to your Brain in Hand app, and also to see a timeline of your days. So the traffic light response is really that last element of this system. And the last element creates a wraparound effect of human supports by using a traffic light response. This takes the traffic light to the next level. So this part of the system is the final backup when none of the strategies are working and you just need someone who can talk out the next steps to get you back on track. So if you're having a tough time or a tough moment in the day, you push that that red light, and your predetermined response is already being carried out. So perhaps you need a phone call from a friend or a supporter to talk you through that process. Or it's the traffic light response center, the person that's there, they're going to be the ones who are going to provide you that support. Your response, however, no matter what, is developed based on your personal needs. So it's goal-oriented based on your goals, very person-centered. And the goal for us is to do such a good job that that red light never needs to be pushed more than twice for the same reason. So the next piece, the entire process, allows each user to create a person-centered plan for their own needs, develop the solutions that work for them. However, it also allows the user to identify patterns and reinforce the strategies that are working and learn to be less dependent on other people, more self-sufficient in their problem solving. And this is the timeline allows you to see how that's been going throughout the course of your day. And this is something that supporters would have access to that information to be able to help through that process. And as you can see, there are 3 key supports to each user. The supporter who knows them and helps them on a daily basis or a weekly basis is really a significant portion of the entire effectiveness of this solution. We want to know that there is someone who already knows that person that's able to engage with them to review those patterns, to look at what's working and what's not working, and in the need, in a moment of need, be able to also build in some new strategies that would help. The specialist is really who is helping them to uncover those goals and triggers and then creates those strategies for managing, as well as establishing that traffic light response system for that particular person. And finally, our traffic light responders who are offering backup for each individual person when things get tough. So I just want to pause here for a moment, and we're going to see if there are any questions that are coming in. I know that we're going through a lot of information, but are there, I don't know if, Marilyn, if there's any questions that have popped up so far?
No questions have popped up on the chat so far, but this is a good chance if anybody wants to chime in and take themselves off mute.
Yeah, for sure. So if anybody has any questions or anything, now's a great opportunity. We'll give you guys a couple of minutes just to process that information.
I have a question.
Excuse me, absolutely, go ahead.
So the impression I'm getting is that this will be a very good program for individuals who are A, self-aware, and B, able to verbalize. I'm wondering about people who, especially when they're under stress in that moments, are not that great at recognizing, identifying what's going on with them inside, and maybe also not so great at the verbalization. I'm thinking about people like my child, that in a situation like that, my expectation would be that many times, if somebody were to explore with them and say, what's going on with you? They would just say, I don't know. I don't know. I can't say, I don't know. What would be your idea about that?
Yeah, Marilyn, do you want to jump on that?
Yeah. Hi, Monica. Marilyn. So the Brain in Hand was designed as a language-based system. They are starting to put some symbols in, but I think you're referring to the traffic light response system when you say that they might need to verbalize. With the traffic light response system, if they're struggling and they press a red light, they could get an email, a text, or a phone call. So verbalization isn't necessary if they would prefer to text or to email. And it's not always in the moment either with the traffic light response, but it is to go over why their current Brain in Hand solution didn't work during that condition that caused them to press the red light. Is that what you were talking about? But otherwise, yes, a certain amount of self-awareness, or at least language, helps. But I actually find that some clients who have a child who needs this support, the parents have been doing all the executive functioning for the young person or for the young adult. And in that case, it's like the parent gets to download some of that executive functioning to a system that slowly allows independence to develop. Does that help?
Sort of, I guess. My situation is wanting to feel comfortable about having my child go off to post-secondary, possibly not in our own town. So both of us are feeling very, very worried and anxious. So I'm looking into this as a solution, but it's only a good solution if my child is going to be able to utilize it in the way that it's designed, right? So I'm trying to assess.
Which is where supporters play a very important role. And that transition happens towards more reliance on the supporter, then less and less. And more reliance on the brain and hand tool. But there are some case studies that we can share with you that outline its success in the UK. So that'd be a great place to start.
Okay.
I think, Monica, the really important part there is that the idea is to look for the strategies that will work for your child, which may be a little bit unique, but perhaps the only option is actually not about, focusing on that self-awareness piece in that moment, as much as it is just selecting the right thing beforehand and knowing what has worked in the past and giving them those strategies. That's really where the key is. So it doesn't necessarily require them to, their red light response may not require them to have that conversation, I guess is what I'm getting at in that moment.
And it gets recorded to the timeline.
Yeah, and that's an important piece because you start to see those patterns. But I don't know, Marilyn, if you have an example or a thought around other examples of, what else might be in place. I know that's it's kind of hard to hard to come up with when it's an unusual scenario, but.
Yeah, it's very individual. But as you mentioned, the system is complicated but simple. So it's flexible for, lots of different needs. So, and it is person directed. So it's custom, the way what goes into the brain and hand is customized for the individual.
Mm-hmm. So I hope that answers your question, Monica.
Sort of, I guess. It sounds like it's just like kind of a thing that you need to try it out and just see how it goes somehow, right? You just have to give it a whirl.
Yeah, and that's very true. And we'll actually, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So I might have a suggestion for you in a couple of minutes. Are there any other questions or examples where people are wondering how it might be applied or anything else like that? Okay, I don't think so. Okay. Would absolutely encourage you to please feel free to drop any in the chat box and we'll just continue through. We're coming very close to the end. I did promise that we would try and stick to a 40-minute window. So we're just going to sort of move into the next piece. So how you can engage, and this is kind of important because this really defines or it allows you to define, depending on where you are, what you can do with engaging with distinctability for brain and hand. And so the very first one obviously are users. So Monica, much like your child heading off to school, might be a great tool for them to help them gain some independence and develop some cognitive skills that they were, or some, executive functioning skills that they maybe haven't been working on independently up until now. And the next piece are really around supporters. And so we may have some people here who, as supporters, someone, Monica, you, for example, would be a supporter, but we may have others who are here recognizing that they have a child or a contact somebody within their organization that they're being supported, and you're able to be that person for them where you're connecting in with them on a regular basis, as well as supporting them through that entire process. The next one are our specialists. And so I know that within many organizations, Marilyn is our great example, within many organizations, there are a lot of people in roles supporting people directly from a professional side of things. And this tool is one more piece of the puzzle for them. So what we are seeing happening is that specialists are becoming trained so that they can offer this to their own clients. So they can actually sort of serve as a supporter, as well as being the specialist who helps them with that initial setup and implementation. And the next one is about our organizational partners. So we have some organizations who we have developed a relationship with where they're able to actually implement this process from beginning to end with their own clients, but are also able to offer it within the community as well. And they may have some internal specialists trained as part of their team, or they may be utilizing some of our independent specialists that we have on board as well, like Marilyn. And then finally, our corporate sponsors or corporate partners. And those corporate relationships are also incredibly important, because not only do we have relationships where from a corporate perspective, we're able to support each other with various things, but oftentimes those corporate partners actually purchase licenses for some of the team members that they have who have some level of neurodivergence that they recognize that this might be really helpful in helping them to manage and cope in their positions. And again, they are able to also be champions for distinctability and brain in hand in Canada within their organizations and their networks. So those are some different ways that you would be able to engage with us around brain in hand, and we'd be very excited in chatting further if you have some interests. There are a variety of different benefits, and the model for that would be something that we could certainly talk about if you have some interest there. Excuse me. And so here's where I think, Monica, we may be able to answer some of those questions for you. We are really excited to be able to offer everybody who's attending a free demo for a week to try out the app part of the technology system. So using the link that I believe Marilyn is just dropping into the chat box. Sorry, I said I dropped into the chat box in my slide, but Marilyn's just dropped that into the chat box. Please feel free to click on that link, and it'll take you directly to our website, and you can just pop your email address and your name into the contact form there, and we will get you set up with a demo. You'll have access to that for the week to be able to go in and see from the website, how do I utilize this, as well as being able to load the app directly onto your smartphone, and then you'll be able to utilize it on a daily basis. So we would absolutely encourage you to give that a try. If you don't want to use that link, you're welcome to drop your name in the chat box, and we'll make sure that we get you registered for that as well. So one of the advantages to the demo is that you can try and build out some suggestions, some solutions based on your experience. So you may have a client you're working with who's experiencing something in particular, maybe in their employment, and so you'll see just how that works. But then you'll also be able to utilize things like the pre-planning, the diary section where you can pre-plan what you need to reminders on a daily basis. And you can remind yourself to just check in with your mood and use our traffic light system. And at the end of the day or the end of the week, you can actually go in and see how often were you indicating that you're having a great day? How many times did you indicate you were okay, but managing? And how many times did you say, I'm having a rough time, I really need some support? And that's ultimately what that traffic light system is all about, is being able to watch the patterns that start to develop out of that, as well as obviously provide that support. So if you're interested in having a demo, please make sure that you check out that link or drop your name in the chat box before the end of the day today. Sorry, before the end of the call. I don't think the chat box will be available till the end of the day. And so at this point, I would just want to stop again and see, are there any further questions that anybody has? Anything that we haven't answered for anyone? And Marilyn, do you have anything that's popped up in the chat box? Yes.
Yes, Catherine in the chat box, and you might be getting to this anyways. Do you have information piece on the training guidelines and fees, e.g. for campus staff? So Catherine, you must be from, did you say where you're from earlier in the chat? So I'm assuming a college or university. And Sherry will be getting to price. Hi, Catherine.
Catherine.
Yeah, I'm with McMaster University. So we have our library accessibility staff. We have our accessibility staff who support students academically. And then we also have additional accessibility services. And I'm with the Student Success Center, specifically supporting student and alumni employment. So it's quite a broad group of people we could be tapping into, and not everyone's on the call today.
Wow,
This is a great time, Sherry, to mention that Brain in Hand in the UK was developed out of a university, and so now has swept their university. It's in like 99% of their universities, and the funding piece is pivotal to implementing this in Canada. So we've been looking into all different ways of how to make sure this is something that our students over here can access.
Yeah, for sure. And as far as the training, so we are working on some timing for specialist training. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that will be coming up in the next couple of months. January. But if we had a large pool from one particular organization, we would probably look at a way to make that. Yeah, yeah, we could absolutely look at how we would make that work in advance. And that whole training conversation, what I'd like to do, actually, if you're okay, is just reach out afterwards. There's a big piece to that. And if people have an interest in that training, make sure you drop your name in the chat box, and then we're able to follow up with you about that specifically. I just had somebody who's coming into the room. So if there's an interest in the details around what training looks like, becoming a specialist or developing specialists internally for your organization, that would be something that we'll probably talk about a little bit more directly, because what you need out of how it's implemented is probably going to dictate a little bit more about how many people you would want trained and that sort of stuff. So I feel like that might be a more in-depth conversation we probably should have before we just kind of give you the carte blanche answer that we would, sort of consider for most everyone. So that was a great question, though. Are there any other questions that are popping up right now? Nope. Okay, wonderful. Okay, well, this has been it's been amazing to have all of you join us today. I'm really excited. And so what we will be doing is following up with the link so that you can go back and have a quick peek to see what we talked about today. And Marilyn's, I see you have your hand up, sorry. Pricing. Oh my gosh. And I totally have the note in front of me, so I didn't forget to share that. So thank you. So one of the things that we often get asked, I'm surprised actually nobody asked, is about what does it cost for implementation and how do we pay for that? And so the first thing I say is that the entire cost for your first year of implementation for each individual user is $1,850. Keeping in mind that that includes your licensing fees, it also includes your specialist setup, and it includes your traffic light response setup. So everything is included in that. And there is a discount system in place. So for organizations who are purchasing multiple licenses as well. So again, that we would circle back and talk to you about what that partnership might look like, and give you more details on that afterwards, should you decide that you're interested in becoming a partner. And as far as where people are, providing funds for these types of things. So first of all, one of the things that we do know is that person-centered planning is something that is being funded in a number of areas. And so that is very much because of the structure of this, we're really focusing on that. I think at this point in time, we do have a number of organizations that we're looking at for funding, and we will have a little bit more detail on that in the near future coming up. Our hope is that our users never have to pay to utilize the system, but of course we have to work out some of the details with each individual person based on their eligibility. So if you have questions around that, please feel free to reach out to us on that as well. And I see something else pop up in the chat box there. I'm not sure if there were more questions. Anything else? Is there a trial period? So what I'd like to do is I'd like for you to actually see the, go through the demo and perhaps have an opportunity to follow up, whether it's with Marilyn or somebody else on the team, to kind of get a sense of whether or not it's the right fit for you. It's really important to us, probably just as important to us, that the fit really makes sense. If it doesn't work for one person, it doesn't do anybody any good. So so the trial period, let's start with that 1 week and see what we can figure out in that time, whether or not it's a fit, and then we can kind of figure out from there. We normally don't offer trial periods, but we do recognize that it is a large commitment when you really don't know how it works just yet.
There is a free app downloadable demo from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. And so I know it's already populated, so it's not unique to you, but that gives you an idea of what it's like, the app is like on your phone. And of course, it's more than just the app on your phone. It's the website, it's the person support. But it's a good place to start too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And you can just search Brain in Hand in your app store and you'll find it and you can download it right away. So you will get a little bit of a sense of what's there and what's available. Are there any post-secondary places in Canada using it? So one of the things that we have currently in place is that it's primarily the users that are bringing it into their environments. At the moment, I don't know that we have any post-secondary that are actually actively purchasing licenses to set up their clients on. So it's more of a case where the people who are using it are taking it into their post-secondary community. Thank you. I wasn't sure if we had any examples of anything different than that, but it's user focused, so that's where it's happening. And we can share some case studies, as we mentioned, about students. In fact, I do have. Marilyn, I'm not sure if you perhaps have the link for the Rosie King handy that you could drop in the chat box. If not, that's okay. But what I will do is include that in our follow-up email with the link to for the video. Afterwards, I will add in that link for Rosie King. So she's a student in the UK who transitioned to school, away at school, and was using her Brain in Hand system to help her with that. All right, and so I'm just being mindful of time, and I want to just say quickly, if there are more questions, we're happy to stay on and answer them, but I want to say thank you very much to everyone. Thank you to Marilyn for having my back and answering questions when I can't multitask. It takes a team, and Donna, I know we didn't get a chance to chat with you, but I'm glad that you were able to join us today. So thank you from the Distinctability and Brain in Hand organization and organizations. And I would like to say, if you need to hop off, you're more than welcome to do that. We will send out a follow-up email within the day. And is there any more questions that anybody has and you want to hang around? We're happy to have you stay and chat. At a client.
I have a question.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
Marilyn wrote in the chat that there's a module workbook PDF. Is that going to be sent to us also in the follow-up email?
Sorry,
I'm quoting, the Brain in Hand 5-module workbook is a fillable PDF, so it is convenient for in-person or Zoom setups. Is that some kind of a workbook thing that you can try and see whether it's good for your child? So or did I misunderstand?
I'm not sure if that's a different document. That's just our workbook, I think, Marilyn, that's our regular workbook, right? So we don't normally send that out because it's part of the system. So it's not something that we typically would send out with the emails. But certainly if you're looking for that to have a look at it, we can certainly share some of the components of it so that you can get a better sense of what that looks like for sure.
Good idea.
Okay, great. And just take note, sorry, I missed who that was that asked that question.
It's Monica.
Okay, sorry, Monica. I had the chat box open over top and I was trying to close it quickly, but I didn't get to it. So we can certainly do that afterwards if you'd like.
Can I just say a couple of things on funding? So I had a Carleton student who's not on OSAP, so he didn't qualify, and he's recently diagnosed with ASD, and so he didn't have any source of funding, and we were able to find him in an alternate source of funding. And I think as this becomes more widespread in its use across Canada, we're going to see more and more funding opportunities to bring this brain in hand to people's hand.
Awesome. Thank you, Marilyn. All right. Any other questions? All right. Well, it sounds like we've answered all of those questions. So again, thank you everyone for joining us today, and we will definitely reach out as soon as we are able to forward off to you the link from today. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
I'll stick around for questions.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everyone. All right.
So
Monica, Katrina, I see that you guys are still here. Was there any questions or anything you guys still had?
do you want to take record off?
Oh, yes. Sorry. I'm going to stop share as well because I almost started a recording.